YouTube, what is going on? Christopher Journals, Comics, and Pop Culture. I am excited to do this video today, guys. If you have been watching my channel for the last couple of months, I have been doing hot comics to invest in of each age. We started out with silver, we went to bronze, we went to copper, and today I'm doing the top 10 hottest modern comics to invest in for 2020. If you guys haven't subscribed to the channel, please take some time to do so real quick before we go into it. We are on the road to 3,000 subscribers. Again, huge announcements. Once we hit that milestone, I'll be having a huge giveaway, hoping to get there by the end of October. So please hit the subscribe button. Now let's go into this, guys. So 10 books. They are in a bit of an order. I picked the order based on current value, but also what I think the potential is for these books to see growth. Most likely in the short term, probably over the next, say, like 5 years. So with that being said, guys, let's go into the first book. Number 10, we have Batman. Number 6, this is the New 52 run. This is the first full appearance of the Court of Owls. Now, guys, we know that some books have more controversy than others when it comes to what somebody's true first appearance is. Court of Owls have kind of a controversial, beginning. Batman number 2 is seen to be as the first true cameo, but this is seen to be the first true full appearance. But guys, this is where the money is at. Um, I think that the Court of Owls has so much potential. We have the Gotham Knights game that's coming out for next gen that is hinting at them having a big role in that game. I think there's been some hints within Matt Reeves' Batman film that we may see the Court of Owls. I think the Court of Owls has a huge future outside of just the comic books, but in the Batman realm of things, in the multimedia, whether it be the gaming verses or the cinematic Batman verses, whether it's the DCEU or a Matt Reeves verse, whatever you want to call it, right? I think there's so much potential there. I think we're going to see a lot more of the Court of Owls. This book has been a book that's continued to increase. Right now, a graded fair market value in a 9.8, still under $100 on average. $95, and 8.5, just $24. Average high grade raw is at about $43. So again, even in a 9.8, you have a high chance of finding this book for right about that $100 mark. Not too shabby. Again, I think this book has great growth potential. All right, guys, moving on to number 9. This book, guys, is probably one of my favorite books from this era, collecting as a kid. That's X-Men number 4, first appearance of Omega Red. Omega Red was one of those villains as a kid that I just like gravitated to. This book has been hot. I think it's going to keep getting hotter. We have a lot of speculation whether this character is going to show up in the MCU soon. There's been hint that this character might possibly be involved in the Falcon and Winter Soldier show, but again, that's all rumor and speculation. There's nothing even concrete to a pinch, right, of this character being confirmed. But I think it's inevitable that this character will show up in the MCU. We know the mutants are coming, which is even more feasible that we could see Omega Red at some point in time. A 9.8 graded fair market value is up to $140. That's big for this book because, just a few years ago, this book, I'm not going to call it a dollar bin book, but, it was not crossing that $100 mark whatsoever. An 8.5, you could still possibly get your hands on one graded for around $30. But an average high raw is going for $45, still way under that $100 mark. I think for this book, you guys, if you're patient on the hunt, you could get your hand on a high grade of this book raw for probably still under that $45 mark. get a book that you might be able to press and then submit it to CGC, hoping you could get like a 9.6 or even a 9.8. That's where I'd be looking at for this book if I were you guys, figuring out how you want to invest your money appropriately. Some of these modern books, it it is more fitting to try to probably go after those raw copies and then submit trying to get those high grades instead of just buying the already graded 9.8, especially the 9.8s. Especially the 9.8s, because we know they're going to command even so much more money than the 9.6s. But that's a whole nother conversation. Moving on, guys. Number 8, Incredible Hulk 449. Who said the late 90s doesn't have awesome books? This is the first appearance of the Thunderbolts. Excuse the misspelling on screen for Thunderbolts. Uh, Thunderbolts, again, so much potential. There's been rumor out there for us to see them possibly, in the MCU, maybe even again. Falcon and Winter Soldier can introduce these. I doubt that there's going to be any hint within Black Widow. We probably would have had some kind of um, actual, hint that was a little more feasible than a rumor. But again, I just think the Thunderbolts are a team that can show up in the MCU, within the next 5 years, especially as antagonists within the Disney Plus series. I think there's a huge avenue for them to appear in that realm of things. Graded fair market value and a 9.6 is $130. 8.5, $70. Average high raw grade, $92, still under that $100 mark. Thunderbolts have continued to gain popularity. You look at kind of what DC's done with Suicide Squad, even though the first movie, in my opinion, was a failure outside of a couple of shining lights when it came to Harley Quinn and Deadshot. But I think the Suicide Squad's going to take off with James Gunn's version. So, but I think there's a lot of similar potential there, obviously, with Thunderbolts. So that's why I made the list. Moving on. Number 7, Invincible Iron Man number 9. First full appearance of Riri Williams, who most of us know at this point as Ironheart. Um, this is a very interesting situation for this character because Invincible Iron Man number 7 is her cameo appearance. But then they did the second printing where they released the stamp of her image on the cover, and that pulled so much hype in that issue where the value of that book was almost hitting at the same value as this book. But I do believe issue number 9 here has been taken off a little more now. This book has been on fire. I think I bought my copy for $10. I don't know how many years back now. Good luck, and it's a near mint high grade. Good luck with that. Graded fair market value in a 9.6 is 130. 8.5, sitting at around $30 on the market right now, but I say good luck. Good luck with that. If there is many 8.5 graded books, good luck finding it for $30. I think that's outdated because you got to think with these modern books, you're not getting a lot of these lower grades, even though, hey, 8.5 is a higher grade, obviously. But when it comes to the modern books, it's really not, and you're not going to get a lot of 8.5s being submitted to the census, whether it's CGC or CBCS or whatnot. So when the thing to look at here is this average high grade raw, $140. Now, I know this list is really focusing on books that you could get your hands on for $100 or under. You could still get your hands on this book for $100 or under, but good luck having it be a near mint. But hey, like I always say, patience. But this character is in line with Miles Morales, Kamala Khan. All right. So once we get any real announcement of this character doing anything, whoo, man. I mean, look, this book has increased over the last couple of years, tenfold. I think this book is going to go through the roof, and I think this character is here to stay for a long while in the comic books. Moving on, number 6, we got another Batman and that's Batman number 635, first appearance of Jason Todd as Red Hood. I did I believe the Copper Age, where I showcased my hot Copper Age books, and I picked Jason Todd's first appearance as Robin, and in the modern age, I'm picking Jason Todd's first appearance as Red Hood. What can I say? I just think Jason Todd is that Robin. I think he's that character who is just, as the Red Hood, has really gained this cult following, similar to Deadpool. You know, there's a lot of similarities where his characters evolved to that we can align with how the character of Deadpool has evolved. If this character can be introduced to a cinematic universe or on the big screen in a way that Ryan Reynolds brought Deadpool to the big screen, wow. I mean, that's just going to solidify this character for the generation. You know, I just think there's endless potential with Jason Todd as the Red Hood. Um, the fair market value for this book on a 9.6 right now is at about 150, 8.5 at about 75. Average high grade raw is a little over the $100 mark at 135. But again, you know, just be patient. Look at your options. Sit on these books. Try to find a decent high grade for around $100 if you can. And again, hey, get it raw, press it up, clean it, press it. If you want to send it in and try to get that higher grade, I think it's definitely worth it. And guys, I'm kind of in the middle of this list here, but like I always say on all these lists, don't just take my word for it when I say, hey, these are hot books to invest in. Don't just go out and blow your money without understanding why you're investing. And I always say, make sure that you love the characters involved. Make sure that you understand the risk involved. Make sure that it's for you. And again, take everything I say with a grain of salt, because when you play any market, it's guessing what the market's going to do. Okay, none of this is set in stone. So had to throw that out there as always. Moving on. Number 5 is Annihilation Quest number 6. It's the first new Guardians team. Again, excuse the the error there. Guardians. It's not the Guardians. It's the Guardians of the Galaxy. So, what was really cool with this team introduction, where you get basically what we saw in the MCU with Star-Lord and Gamora and Rocket and Drax and whatnot. But you had Quasar and Warlock. Now, here's what I think is really, really important about this book. Okay, one, Annihilation. I think Annihilation and Annihilus and anything surrounding Annihilus, and I did that in my top 10 cosmic Marvel books to invest in. I believe Annihilus, first appearance of Annihilus, was number 1 on that list. I think Annihilus is going to show up in the MCU within the next 10 years. Um, I think that there's the speculative piece regarding that. But when you look at the Guardians of the Galaxy, James Gunn has came out and said that this most likely is his last Guardians film, the 3rd film, right? And they've stated that most likely the team will look different after this. Now, will it look completely different? Like where you take every single character and scrap them for new characters. I don't know. I'm gonna assume that we might have maybe I could say maybe they keep one of them. They keep Gamora on. Who knows, right? But when you think of the possibility of Quasar and Warlock joining a new Guardians of the Galaxy team, I think that adds even more oomph to this book, because we know that Adam Warlock was hinted that who still most likely will show up in Guardians 3. We know that there's so much of a door opening for Quasar to join the MCU at some point. I think having a new Guardians team that involves Quasar and Warlock would be absolutely amazing. And if it does, wow, look for this book to be one that people flock to. Graded fair market value in a 9.6 is $140. 8.5, $85. Average high grade raw, guys, $40. So this is one I think you can still get well under that $100 mark in a high grade. Moving on to number 4. This has been a hot one. New Avengers, #7, first appearance of the Illuminati. This showed up in the top 10 for a couple of weeks. It's kind of cooled off. We did get a bit of a hint of a rumor that there's talks that the Illuminati might show up in the MCU. I think there's so much that the MCU could do with the Illuminati. Jeff and I talked about it on Comic Book Canon a couple times. And this book is has heated up. Uh, Fair market value graded in a 9.6, $120, 8.5, 65. Average high grade raw right now, $46. Not too bad. Um, this is one of those where, I think there's this initial kind of bubble that inflated this a little bit, and it might cool off. So personally, if I was in the hunt for this book, and again, this is just what I would do, I would probably sit back maybe for another month, maybe even two, and see if this book can cool off a little bit, and just watch the trends. Watch the trends, because if it doesn't cool off, and you really want to grab this book and take those risks, you might want to just monitor it and say, well, if I can get it for under $50 right now, that's still a good deal. Uh, next to saying waiting for it to cool off, and maybe you try to grab it for $30. If you can still get it for 50, you don't want to wait or have that much patience and have that fear of missing out. Because again, this is just another one of those books that if Illuminati is officially announced in the MCU, I see high grade Ross going for well over $100 for this book. That's my take on it, guys. My interpretation of the situation. Moving on. #3, Inhumans #5. Guys, let me tell you why this book is a very interesting one right now. This is the first appearance of Yelena Belova as Black Widow. And this book caught fire once we officially knew that the Black Widow film was featuring her in it. And once we got word that her character was going to be taking the Black Widow mantle in the MCU moving forward. But here's a very interesting situation on this book. This book has hit a bit of a stagnant point because of all the pushback with the Black Widow film. So, is it the best time to buy this book? Absolutely not. You missed that. You missed it, okay? But hear me out. It's a very interesting time right now because once the movie finally hits, I think this book is there's going to be a reactionary FOMO, a reactionary buy once the movie finally hits theaters or wherever it hits and we're finally watching it. And I think this book is going to shoot through the roof. Now, once that happens, I do think there's going to be another cool off period at some point in time after that. But you're in an interesting point right now because it is kind of stagnant. It's not increasing at a level that you would think with the movie on the horizon. But we just got word today, guys, that Black Widow is being pushed back a full year to May 2021. So I think it's kind of leaving a bad taste in people's mouth. Obviously, we have to understand with everything going on in the world. But again, look, if you're willing to dish out the money right now, knowing that there's a great possibility that this hasn't seen its peak, go ahead and do so. But just know that you're still paying a premium because you missed out on when you could have caught this book before the curve. So, graded fair market value right now in a 9.6, it's at about 170, 8.5 at 85. Average high grade raw, $125. All right. Our last two books, guys. I'm excited. #2, The Century. #1, first appearance of the Century. So I just had a great conversation with Matt, the boy who had seven, and Jeff, Comic Book Canon, about this book. Matt showed this book off on our show last week on Comic Books Canon as a modern book that he is all in on. This book has continued to get hot. And hey, I don't want to take the words out of Matt's mouth, but he made a lot of great points on how this character can show up in the MCU and change the game. Do I feel it's inevitable? If I had to really make a guess, I'd say yes, that this character will show up in the MCU. At what point in time, though, that's that's where it's unclear to me. If I had to put my personal opinion on it, I don't think that the Sentry is a character that we're going to see in these next phases, like the next saga. I don't think Sentry's good. If this actually, let me reword that. If Sentry is added in this, say, like next decade saga, right? I think that it would be at the tail end. Kind of like how Captain Marvel was introduced at the tail end of the Infinity Saga, right? And I think Captain Marvel was that door, even though we had Guardians, and we had other elements, obviously Thanos and the Infinity Stones is very cosmic in itself. But I think adding Captain Marvel was the entryway to allowing that next stage in the next saga of the MCU to be even more cosmic. I see this character as being that gateway into something even bigger. So, do I think that we're going to see this character in the next like 5 to 8 years? I'm going to say it's not very likely. Hey, and if I'm wrong, I'll come back. I'll come out here in 3, 4, 5 years whenever we see him and say I was wrong. But do we have more of a possibility of seeing him in the next maybe 8 to 10 years? I say yes. Regardless, this is a very interesting character that has so much capability, not only within the MCU, but as we continue his story within the comic books as well. But hey, look, Feige behind the handle of Marvel Print right now, and we just got a reboot of a Century series. You never know, because I made a prediction that with Feige at the helm of the books, of the comics as well, instead of trying to take the changes they've done in the MCU and then bring those in the comic books by doing reboots and all this stuff, I think they're going to go back to introducing new fresh stuff in the comic books first and then tying in the MCU to that. So that's one kind of silver lining to say, well, if we're getting a new take on Century in the comic books, hey, maybe we will see him sooner than later in the MCU. You never know. But graded fair market value for this book and a 9.6, guys, is $170, and 8.5, you're looking at about 70. Average high raw grade, though, or excuse me, average high grade raw, $120. I don't think this book is slowing down regardless of movie hype. All right, guys, are you ready for my number one book? This book has been just crazy to me, and it's another one of those characters for the next generation, books truly for I call it the postmodern age, or this new modern age that we're in, and these new generation of readers and comic book lovers, guys. And that's Vengeance #1, the first appearance of America Chavez. What can I say about this book other than it's blowing my mind? Okay, I didn't even put the 9.8 down on this because you already got a 9.6 fair market value graded going for almost $200. Now, again, I'm going to go back. Yes, I noted these books as books that you can invest in $400 or less, right? As you can see, the value of these books started to increase with the last couple of. But look, this is a book that I had to put on here. There's a possibility that you could still find a lower grade book for under $100, right? But there's not going to be that many out there because it is a more modern book. But guys, this for modern books right now. Now, I wasn't going to include the first appearance of Miles or the first appearance of Kamala. I mean, those prices are way through the roof to even think about putting on this list. But this book is a book that's another one that it's been just skyrocketing. You look at an average fair market value of 8.5 at around $100. But that, again, I think the way that the rate that this book is increasing, I even think that fair market value is outdated. Average high grade raw, $250, guys. This book was a $5 book 5 years ago. $5, $10 book. This book is, and look, I probably have some viewers saying, "Oh yeah, I don't buy into the modern hype." This is truly, in my humble opinion, beyond that, guys. And I said the same thing with Miles when UF4 started shooting through the roof. I think we'll still see a little bit, of an ebb and flow, obviously, which is natural with these books. But these are the characters. These are the superheroes of the next generation in comic books. So it's not even about MCU really, but think about this as well. Our generation that really kind of grew up, or maybe the young adults to the kids that grew up into adults with the MCU in the Infinity Saga, you have a whole nother generation of individuals that haven't even really understood their love for comic books yet, that still have huge a huge amount of MCU goodness to take in their lifetime. And I say this, guys, and a lot of people say, "Oh, the MCU ended after Endgame, or I'm done with the MCU after Endgame." The MCU is just getting started, in my opinion, and it's characters like these that are really going to keep the MCU going, probably through the rest of my lifetime, and even maybe when I'm gone. I mean, it's crazy to think about that. So that's why this book is number one, guys. I know this book is teetering past that $100 mark, but look, just here's some recommendations that I would give. Go to flea markets. Go to patio sales or whatever you guys might be able to have in your area. Go to local um, comic book stores and see if you could still find this book in the back issue bins, or with a price that hasn't caught up to the fair market value. And you may have some luck on your side, and if you're willing to not be so focused on a high near mint grade, and you want to look at maybe a fine grade of this book, I think there's still the ability to find this under $100, and you gotta take your chances with it if you're willing to, uh, you know, roll the dice and play your cards on this one. But again, I have this at number one for a reason. I don't think this character is going anywhere, and I think this book for the long term, even with possible short term ebb and flows, I think this book for the long term is going to be here to stay. So. There it is, guys. That is my top 10 modern comics to invest in for 2020. Obviously, Marvel heavy. I thought about throwing a couple of independents in this book. There's a couple of Boom Studio books that I thought about throwing in, but I think ultimately right now, um, when you look at where the value's at right now in these books and their potential, Marvel has leeway just because of what they've been doing with their multimedia properties, especially with Marvel Studios. DC hopefully is catching up, but so. All right, guys, let me know what you think of my list. Do you have any of these books? Are you in the hunt for any of these books? And are there any modern books that you think were just as valid to be on this list? Let me know what those are in the comments. Share your thoughts, guys. And again, thank you so much for watching Road to 3,000. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so, guys. Be well, and until next time.